How are the Panthers the third oldest team in the NFL?
What is up, everyone? I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot, presented by our good friends over at Little Caesars Pizza. We're Stay Hot, they're staying ready with some hot and ready pizza for you all NFL season long. Last week, we talked about some of the teams at the top of the league, the current playoff picture, where those teams currently stand, and where we think they will be come the end of the year. This week, we're doing the opposite. We're looking at the bottom feeders, asking the question, are they really as bad as their record suggests? And then seeing where they go from here, whether that be making moves at the deadline or what they could do in the offseason. But before we get into that, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing well. I've got a story. This happened to me the other day. I was walking into my apartment. There was a black widow spider that made a web in the corner of the doorway.
Remind me
a
to
black
never
widow.
go visit you, Theo.
And I was like, what am I going to do about this? I don't want to be walking by this poisonous spider. It was a Halloween decoration, but it was real. So I remembered I had my bug vacuum, which is just like a gun that has a very, very light suction to it, and it goes into a jar. And I was like, I am uniquely equipped to handle this situation. So I pointed it right at the Black Widow spider, and I sucked it up into my jar. And then I'm like, this thing is like a grenade, because you can open the jar. It has like a twist, and then it opens. I'm like, I could open it and like loft it and do some.
Bro's gonna unleash some damage on his mortal enemy.
I could like keep this around or something, but instead I just opened it, threw it out in the outside, and then came back.
You let it go?
Later. All right, well, what am I gonna do?
Kill it.
How am I supposed to do that?
I don't burn it. I don't fucking like.
It's in the jar. I don't want to put my hands in the jar. I guess I could have just left it in the jar.
You should have put it in the dishwasher while it was still closed.
I'm not putting a Black Widow in my dishwasher and
keep
running
the jar
the dishwasher.
closed. Keep the jar closed.
Then it's
put
just...
it in the dishwasher and let it like superheat on the inside.
Yeah, dude.
I'm not doing that. What I did is I opened the jar and
put it in
threw
your oven.
the jar.
Maybe the oven's a better idea.
I'm not putting. It's a plastic jar. I'm not putting that in the fucking oven.
Oh, so it's microwave safe.
I guess I could have maybe microwaved this Black Widow, but instead I just decided
your first
to.
thought, Blaiden.
I'm not putting
microwave the spider.
I'm not putting a Black Widow in my kitchen anyway. I'm not bringing it into my room. I just let it like out somewhere where it's not in the doorway. I'm not too concerned about getting bitten by it, like
I would.
Oh, that's badass.
Oh.
Well, I had my gun. I didn't like pick it up. Like, I don't think it's gonna come back. Like I don't think it's a.
Is this a sponsored post for the gun?
This is it's not that good of a gun, unfortunately. Like, I want something that is a little bit stronger. This was like, it kind of stayed in the nozzle a little bit too long, and I'm like, is this gonna run out at me? But yeah. That's what happened, and then it was a good day for Arizona sports as well, with the Diamondbacks in the World Series, which I have just decided to care about now. And then Suns won opening night, so I got to rep the Arizona hat.
Hi.
Casual.
I am a casual. Ketel Marte.
Name one player on the Diamondbacks.
Ketel Marte.
Hey.
Is he... The Reds have a Marte. Maybe he's his brother.
I think he is he does have a brother in the league who's also, I think, pretty good. But Marte has bet on the Diamondbacks for forever. Maybe not forever, but since they were bad when I was in college. So shout out D-backs and shout out the Suns.
Yeah, I didn't catch the whole game because I got sleepy, to be completely honest with you.
Respect.
But
Well,
Devin
here's
Booker was
the
having a heck
recap.
of a first half.
He had a heck of a second half as well, and through crunch time, it was close. They were kind of going basket for basket, and he had notable assists on the last 4 scores, I believe, for the Suns, where he would get doubled. Obviously, he's going to draw a lot of defensive attention, especially with the ball in his hands. So 2 guys would come. He made some fantastic passes and was a key point book contributor or distributor down the stretch. And I like the performance from the Suns. I really liked what Nurkic Nurkic was able to do. They dominated on offensive rebounds, which I haven't seen in a while. I think he was like something like 5 for 8 shooting. He hit a 3, which the old center is not able to do. So
the old center.
Nurkic is a little bit easier to get involved into the offense, and I think that's why they got him. He can sort of pass the ball a little bit better and is more with the screening and the short roll stuff and all of that. He more is complimentary than maybe Ayton was, because Ayton's first overall pick, and I'm not super low on Ayton, but I think things look pretty good for them. I thought even some of their depth pieces showed some life, although they were running some Booker-less, KD-less lineups that had me scratching my head and going, huh? Too, but once Beal is back, I think having one of them on the court at all times will be big for them. And I mean, Booker's as good as he's ever been. He is starting to get up to that next level, man. He really is.
Yeah, he's a really well-rounded
not even
player
starting
at this
to.
point.
He's at this point. Yeah, it's he's continued to develop well into his 20s, which is not something that every player does. So where he ranks among NBA players, I think he's top 10.
It's getting there. He's the best shooting guard in the league, I would say. I mean, Donovan Mitchell probably also in that conversation, but I'm taking Booker pretty comfortably. I don't know who else you would even
Booker's size makes a big difference.
Yeah, he's huge, and Point Book was on full display. A better performance from our center than I think that we've seen in a while as a Suns fan. They weren't able to get to the rim at all, which is pretty predictable. They don't really want to get to the rim. It was all mid-range, and they won. They won with that formula, and they're going to have to continue to win with that formula. So the Warriors aren't the biggest team in the world, so who knows if the post defense and all the offensive rebounds that they got, if that'll hold for the whole season. Actually, we do know it won't, but nice to get a win on opening night. Draymond,
absolutely.
The best part of being 1-0 is
chance to
go 2-0.
That's right.
I've been waiting for a chance to cook up the opposite for the Panthers. The best part about 0-6.
Chance to go 1-6, baby. Can't even say you would want to keep losing. Don't have your first round pick.
Nope. I mean, should we just get right into it? We're going to talk about some of the worst teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I think starting with the Panthers makes a lot of sense, and I think them being the last winless team, we've been avoiding talking about them all year. But at this
point, we've talked about them a decent amount.
Have we?
I think we've talked about them the least of the Browns, the Packers, and them.
Yes.
Well, I agree with
easily. And I think it's pretty fair to say, I don't think any of us would argue that they are as bad as billed. Matt, where do you think if you had to make a claim as to the worst part of their team right now, or like the biggest change that needs to happen, what would that be?
The worst part of the team? I mean, they just don't have any way to create explosives. I'd say it has to be the receivers, in my opinion. At least going forward, that's the number one thing that you have to fix. There's a lot of options. Part of their problem also is that they're very banged up on defense. They have a lot of their key players out, and that kills them. But just overall as a team, I mean, it's like every single unit. Nobody on this team is playing well. I mean, where do you even start with them? You're 0-6. You don't have your first round pick. If you had your first pick, we'd be talking about something a lot different, but they don't.
Right.
And the only way out of this is to just start drafting better and making better decisions. And it's going to be a long process. It's not going to be fixed in one off season. I think Scott Fitterer is probably done after this. I would project. His draft record is just too bad, and they're not going to be a successful team drafting like that. I mean, that's kind of where it all begins and ends for pretty much every team. But on top of that, they've made a ton of other bad decisions. You know, the whole Brian Burns fiasco. You know, you see people draw up trade rumors for him now. It's like a second and a third. It's, man, you could have 2 firsts and a second. You could have avoided giving up your first this year. That alone would have, saved them a ton.
Right.
Letting Hassan Reddick walk for, very, very little. Disaster. Terrible move. How they've handled their cornerback room outside of J.C. Horn. Disaster.
And he can't even stay healthy.
Dante, yeah, he can't stay healthy. Dante Jackson getting a contract of all the guys that we've either chosen to or not re-sign. CJ Henderson's been very, very mid, and we gave up assets to do that. And that's one of my problems with them, is that they don't value the day 3 picks as much as more serious teams do. I think the common thinking in the NFL is that those picks are actually more valuable, and you should try to stack up a bunch and take as many swings. And it felt like the Panthers have had as few swings as possible in the draft to bring home stuff. They've been very loose with what they've given up. The Darnold trade was bad. The Matt Corral trade was terrible. He had 1 start. We gave up 2/3 for that. That's serious capital.
Yeah.
And then just trading up for Bryce in retrospect right now is looking pretty rough, considering that, you were banking so much on, Mingo or Terrace Marshall Jr. to step up, or like the Adam Thielen signing to be great, who has been pretty good for them, but it's not like an explosive generator or anything. So it's just a lot, man. It's just a lot. This is probably the one team here where you're like, going forward, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's like nothing they could possibly do at the trade deadline would even remotely matter. And then in the offseason, it's like you don't have your first round pick, because we'll mention a million times to the end of time for the Panthers. Oh, they don't have the first round pick. But it's like, seriously, where do you go from here? There isn't like a clear-cut path.
I think with them, it comes down to trading back and maybe trading Burns at the deadline, even if you don't get the 2 firsts. I think that he's someone that's probably still worth saying what you can get for a guy like that, because right now they're really one-dimensional, like on both offense and defense. Like they can't play man coverage because of the corners. It's all zone all the time for them. And on offense, it's like they're number 1 in a couple things. They're number 1 in the amount that they drop back, and they're number 1 in the amount that it's a short drop back. So on offense, they're limited to just, the quick game stuff, because they can't hold the ball. Like there's no use to it. The odds you get sacked versus the odds someone gets downfield, like, isn't worth it. So you just got to get the ball out of your hands. And their running back situation is the worst in the league probably right now as well.
Hubbard has actually been better this year. He actually deserves some credit. I don't think I've seen a running back improve like him in a long time. But the Miles Sanders signing has been a disaster.
I can't believe how bad Sanders has been.
He's been terrible.
Yeah,
and granted, the offensive line deserves.
That's the offensive line regressing as much as it has is, I think, a really big surprise.
So they just need everything, and it's like at that, and you need draft picks as well. So if the players on the team aren't any good, you should be looking towards the future and getting new players on the team. And the way to do that is to, your draft picks, which they have been very loose with in the past, and look where that's gotten them. So to me, they've got to be looking at being sellers at this trade deadline, whether that be for Chin, whether that be for Burns, whether that be for Terrace Marshall Jr., if he's not going to be involved and someone else wants him. Like I think all of them are kind of on the chopping block for anybody who wants them, because they've got a long way to go to just be able to run multiple things, much less be good at them. Like right now, I just want them to be able to like run at all or like do play action at all. And they
that would all be awesome stuff, no doubt.
Like you can't just do the same thing over and over again.
Dude, they're fucked, man. They're so fucked, dude. It sucks, man. And again, it just comes down to drafting better. You just have to draft better. You have to hold on to more picks. And this is why I hear these rumors about like a Jerry Jeudy trade.
Why are you giving up assets?
What's that doing?
Like
we're continuing to give up assets, and it's like that's another deadline sort of like panic button, do something move. You don't want to trade for Jerry Jeudy because the Broncos don't want him. The Broncos have decided that he is not going to be a player worth paying what he's going to cost. He probably isn't. And the only way to make the team better long term is to stop making moves that are going to be bad value in the future. I'm sure that it would help to have a guy who can separate for Bryce Young.
Yeah.
But I just we can't accept trading more draft picks for minimum value. And I guess you could argue, well, the Panthers do nothing with their draft picks anyway, but like
get a new GM and maybe
if you're getting rid of picks because you're afraid you can't draft, like that's a whole other issue.
Yeah, I think this all needs to be addressed in the offseason. I just don't think that there's anything at the deadline that this team can do to become a solid overall roster at this point. I think that they just need to continue to see what could be cornerstones going forward. You know, get Mingo on the field as much as possible. That's how they learn. You know, get Icky as many reps as possible. He's still a young player. You know, it's still just his second season. So I don't think that
19.
these people need to be replaced. I don't think that. I mean, obviously they do need to get replaced eventually, but like right now is just not when you're getting like really efficient value for people because it's only for 7 games and then a contract is up or something like that. So it's a good time for them to sell as much as possible.
Yeah, I'd probably agree.
And then in terms of what they need to target this offseason, it's just anything.
A GM.
A GM specifically would help. I think another corner, because you drafted J.C. Horn to be a press man corner. The fact that you're dead last in the league in man coverage is bad.
You need to get this man like a personal trainer. Find a way to keep him on the field. God damn.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to be healthy. But another corner to me is probably top of the wish list on defense. If they trade Brian Burns away, you need some sort of other pass rusher.
You need another pass rusher regardless.
Yeah, they're 31st in the league in pressure right now. One stat with them that's super interesting is they're one of the better teams in late down situations. So it's like once they get to third, Ijero can like get off the field. The problem is they're the worst on early downs. So it's like, which honestly makes the third down stuff probably more impressive because it's probably like third and short. So I don't know. That doesn't really mean anything in terms of how they can build the team out. But at any rate, they need to get a lot done. And I think the only way to do that is shed contracts and get draft picks.
Well, what my projection is that because they don't have their first round pick, they're very scared of like giving up the number 1 overall pick. They don't want to be the team that did that. The difference between them winning 4 games and 1 is going to be a very big deal mentally, and they're not going to sell at the deadline. Also because Tepper does not want them to ever sell. He doesn't want them to be sellers. He comes from Pittsburgh. He thinks like, well, we should be contending we must demand better than mediocrity. We cannot be sellers. We're always buyers. We're always looking to compete. And that's cool, man. But like, that's just a stupid mindset. That's stupid. Sometimes you are sellers. Sometimes you do need to go through a proper rebuild. And I just think the team's direction has been a little bit all over the place, a little bit too short-term thinking, a little bit too much short-term thinking, I should say. And it's killed them. And the only way through it is new GM, draft better, make better decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Week to week, you want to
Fitter
win.
has a pretty indefensible resume. I think that people get a little bit too like everybody needs to be fired. Ken Dorsey needs to be fired. Matt LaFleur needs to be fired. Dable, like, is he on a hot seat?
Yeah.
Those are all
Stefanski.
like, overreactions. When it gets Panthers level bad, yeah, man, that's these are things that the normal everyday dude could have done and seen coming. I would have prevented you from being the only winless team right now. And when that starts to happen, then they can be gone.
And it's just everything. I mean, I can't stress enough how bad they've been drafting. Mingo was drafted very highly, has not done much. Um, Zavala, the guard, he's injured now, but when he was in, I mean, he was like the worst offensive lineman in the league. I know he's a 4th-round pick, but it's like, damn, we never get those. Or Robinson, the safety, getting practice guys starting over him, regardless of how hurt we are at safety right now. I mean, it's like he can't even possibly see the field over, like, you know, again, practice squad guys. It's ridiculous, man. We just cannot get anybody to contribute outside of like the first couple of rounds, and even guys who have been labeled as hits for Tepper are not, like Jeremy Chin. He doesn't really see the field that much for the Panthers. He plays like 30% of snaps. So he's got to go. You got to do, and you're in a big hole and you got to dig yourself out slowly. It's the only way.
Yep. So we'll see. I think the deadline, they'll definitely be one of the biggest teams to watch.
Yeah.
What team is next? This episode of Stay Hot is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. I've been talking about all the NFL things that you can bet. How about NBA? NBA season is back. I'm looking at it now. Jason Tatum over under. Jaylen Brown over under. These are all happening in like an hour. Get in on the action for football, baseball, basketball, hockey. It's the best time of year in sports right now. And Underdog has you covered with so many different game modes, so many different things to bet with for so many different sports. FIFA also involved, PGA, esports, racing. I don't even know what KBO is. It's got a baseball above it. That might be some Korean baseball organization. I don't know what it is. NBP, Nigerian pickleball. I guess I can't confirm or deny that is what they have, but that I can't imagine what else it stands for. So yes, all different kinds of things to bet, all different kinds of game modes. They will double your first deposit up to $100. So if you put in just $10, then you got 20. If you put in 20, then you got 40 in your account, up to 100. So use code Stay Hot, Underdog Fantasy on the App Store. You'll see it right when you log in, the opportunity to use the code and double your first deposit.
Next would be the Arizona Cardinals, who have been kind of feisty. We've been very careful to not lock against them this year, I think, because of that. But they only have one win. They're 1-6 at this point.
I think I'm ready for the Dobbs thing to be over. Like, Petzing is cool. I really like their coordinator for him to design the run offense that he has with, the motion and the gap scheme. It's really caused some good defenses trouble. And when you've got even remotely positive results with what we all thought was the worst team in football, a potentially historically bad team, like any sort of scrappiness or success is worth celebrating, even if you look at the numbers and it's like, oh, they are one of the worst teams. Like, it's important to keep in mind.
But
it's important
James
to keep in
Conner's
mind what
5.4.
Yeah, like they are not a bad rushing team at all, and they're fun to watch. And they use Michael Wilson, like they get him involved really well with moving across the formation. He can really block and take these touch passes and take them a ways. And it's a little like the play action and hit flood concepts on the side and use Josh Dobbs as a runner as well. And he's made some explosive plays. Like that's all good. And I think it could look even better when Kyler is there. Yes. And to me, it comes down to we need guys on defense. Like we need players who can really get after it. They aren't the most aggressive defense in the world. Like they like to put a roof on things more than almost any other team. And when that's the case, you need guys to rush the passer. And they just don't quite have that right now. They have a right tackle that I think they can feel pretty good about in Paris Johnson Jr. They have 2 first-round picks. And I think both of those probably could be used on the defensive side. I think that's where they need the most help more than offense.
I am not so confident that it's all going to be defense for him. I mean, I think when you're picking, as it stands right now, second overall, you can't box yourself in like that, especially with a team that could really use almost anybody anywhere, like the Cardinals. I mean, if you have the second overall pick, I'd say it's one of the big weapons, or it's trading down.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. I just think they rush 4 so much, and they're playing quarters so much that like you need a good pass rush in that situation. Like that's the number one. They could use anything, but that's like my number one.
I don't think that's. I don't disagree on that being a need. I just think you don't want to box yourself in too much when you're building a team. I mean, they do need more weapons on offense, I think. Yeah. They've made good with what they've had, but if you can get somebody who's generating explosives, I mean, we've seen what that's done. If you can get a Marvin Harrison or a Keon Coleman or a Brock Bowers, you should go do that. And the thing is that the top of this class is so strong, it feels like, with a lot of good players at a lot of key positions, that they might be able to trade down 5 or 6 spots and still get one of those guys. And on top of that, they're sitting on a boatload of draft picks and a very good amount of money. I mean, they've got, like 3/3 and 2/4 and 5/5, and obviously they've got 2 firsts. Like they're really in a position to go and start to, at least hopefully have one of the best drafts in the league next year. So I think they're in an incredibly good position. I think there's very little chance that they try to move on from Kyler. There's some rumblings of that, but
why would they? Their rebuild is in such a nice place right now, where they do have money and they do have picks, and even if they get a really high one, with what Caleb Williams has shown, like I don't know if he's quite worth moving off Kyler for. If you could trade back, like
the thought for that was like, if the Cardinals were really like the worst team in the league by far, and your timeline seemed way far in the future, and Caleb Williams looked like an unbelievable, like one of the all-time prospects, which he's very good. I'm not out on him, but I don't think that he does.
No, I'm not out on him either. He's a lot like Kyler, I think.
Yeah. And if you could have been like, well, we could get Caleb Williams for super cheap and we could trade Kyler and get a bunch of assets that way, and then we have the cheap rookie quarterback, which is a huge advantage. I could have seen a world where it all made sense, but I don't think we're living in it. And I don't think the Cardinals are that far off, and with the assets they have, I honestly think things will turn around pretty quick for them.
It just doesn't seem super advantageous to them to make that kind of a move.
No, it seems like it could be kind of. We'll see how Kyler plays at the going
that's
forward.
The obvious,
but it sounds like he is going to be back this year, and I have high hopes for him in an offense that has made Josh Dobbs look like, I don't know, the 20th, 21st, 22nd best quarterback, maybe something like that. I don't think Dobbs is necessarily
better than Watson and PJ Walker. That's for sure.
He might be that. I don't think Dobbs is quite, that he's really smart, but is he the quickest processor, and does he react to things like at a really high level in the NFL? Like, I don't really think so. Kyler does. Kyler, can make some chances and throw some passes that are ill-advised, but he reacts to stimuli incredibly quickly. Like, he can throw with anticipation, and when guys pop up and obstacles pop up, he makes them miss it instantly. So yeah, I think when you get a guy like Kyler in an offense that has a really strong running game, James Conner has been one of the more efficient, productive backs in the entire league behind this scheme and this line. And there is Michael Wilson, who I think is a legit player. Obviously, Marquise Brown is a legit wide receiver. Maybe not a legit wide receiver one, but certainly a useful piece in a core. And so is Rondale Moore, and so is the tight end core. They'll get in heavier personnels with a lot of tight ends out there, and they're all good blockers and can receive a little bit as well. Like, and then you get all these picks coming in. I think, yes, if they can make that pass rush, just if there can be some sort
Well-
of threatening presence in the defensive line, then I would, and the corner room. It's really easy to pick on these corners. That's the
It's
other
a very
thing.
good corner class. Looking
Yeah.
from afar here, there's a lot of guys to like.
Here's an
That's
idea.
why I say, like, I would, if the Cardinals come out of this draft with 2 big defensive additions, like, I think the offense could be in a pretty good place, not only at the beginning of next year, but like even towards the end of this year.
I mean, you could solve one of those things right now, right before the deadline. We just talked about how the Panthers need to be selling Brian Burns.
To the
Tell me
Cardinals.
why the Cardinals shouldn't make a call if they have the money.
I don't think their timeline makes sense for it.
No.
Nah, they're
Yeah,
not. Really
I think that if you're
veterans, you got to pay.
Brian Burns, like, I feel like that might be a contend for the Super Bowl type team who does that. I don't know if they should be buyers at the deadline necessarily, but they should definitely invest once the offseason hits. I mean, obviously everybody should. They're dead last in pressure rate right now, by the way.
Yeah. Got to be better.
Yeah, and there's a decent number of edge prospects this year. I haven't really sat down and watched a ton of them. I know Verse looked like a beast against LSU, but I don't think his production's anything too crazy. Some of the Penn State guys are really good last weekend. Chop Robinson. There's Dallas Turner for Alabama. There's dudes across this class at every position. I do really think that in a class like this, though, the idea that they're just fine weapon wise on offense because things could like be okay. They need a game breaker. You got to have.
You're
one.
right.
And if
They
they're
don't
in
quite
position
have
to get one. You should go for it.
Yeah, if you can add a Keon Coleman or Marvin Harrison Jr. to this team, I wouldn't be mad at that as well. But somehow, some way, like, sign Chase Young. Yeah, I wouldn't be mad at a Brian Burns trade if they made it. Like, you need a guy like that eventually. It just has to happen if you're going to be rushing forward like this. You rush forward with this, you're dead last in pressure. So, yeah, whether that be a Brian Burns, whether that be someone in free agency, whether that be a first round pick they trade back, maybe, who knows. I just think that absolutely needs to happen in this scheme. You think about what the Eagles defensive line was like last year with Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox and Josh Sweat, and now they continue to invest in that. Like, it is, you got to pass and you got to affect the passer, and they're just the worst at affecting the pass. That is number somehow, some way. So yeah, I guess if it is Burns at the deadline, Blaiden, like, I wouldn't be the worst at that, like, super mad at that, because they are probably going to be taking a guy near the top of the draft, and it does seem like the receivers or the offensive players are maybe a little bit more impact than the top defensive players this year. Joe Alt as well, and some of these linemen are at the top.
Yeah, we'll eventually get to like analyzing those prospects, and maybe there will be a guy where it's like, oh, you know what, the Cardinals would be better off drafting him, but that is yet to be seen. Up next, the Chicago Bears, who managed to get a win this week despite not having starting quarterback Justin Fields. And the big question on everyone's mind is, how long does he have?
He's got to the end of the year to really, really show something. Because if the Bears end up with the number 1 overall pick, and it's still the jury's out on Fields after 3 years, I don't think there's any way you can not go with one of the top 2 guys.
I don't think so either.
It's got to be now, or you move into some team for a 4th and you call it. They're in a pretty advantageous position though as far as rebuilds go. I think because they're gonna have that top pick, and I think it could pretty simply be quarterback up high if things don't work out with Fields, and then you'll probably have another high pick, which is your own. And again, I think the top of this class is really good, and I think there's a lot of ways that you could work to start supporting that quarterback, whether it be one of these top tackles, whether it be one of these top receivers. We don't really know exactly where the Bears pick is going to fall, whether or not it's going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. range, or whether or not it's going to be like maybe Coleman, who's a little bit lower, or Brock Bowers, any of those guys. But you could throw out a rookie quarterback on a fresh deal with DJ Moore and another weapon, that sounds great to me. That sounds like a fantastic start. And I'm almost certain they have huge money to spend this offseason if they'd like to do that. However, be careful. Don't go sign any maybe off-ball linebackers for huge money.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that they're not in the worst position. I think that their offense has kind of stabilized a little bit here. They were able to put points on the board with Tyson Bagnet. I don't know.
I believe it's Bagnet. I could be wrong though.
And yeah, with that being said, though, if they are picking super high, it is going to be very tempting to go with Drake May or Caleb Williams. I think Fields just has not quite shown enough in terms of his ability to just drop back and operate a full passing game. And it's not all his fault. And it's fair to say, like, the Bears may have ruined him and he could have been something way better, or maybe could still be in the future. I don't know. But at this point, the front office doesn't have any ties to him. They didn't pick him. They gave him DJ Moore. They're still, not an elite passing offense by any stretch, although they have had some good performances. He's got still a long time to turn it around. But the way things stand right now, it looks like for the Bears, it would be pretty difficult to pass up on one of the top two guys, given the way Fields has played. I agree with that. Although their offensive numbers aren't quite the worst, they're actually not terrible in terms of offensive EPA per play. But
yeah,
I think the film tells kind of a
EPA.
different. I think the film tells kind of a different story in terms of the coaching staff and the quarterback.
25th. The rushing EPA is 3rd. So like that's where it's meeting in the middle. But it's just the passing offense. It's just brutal.
Yeah, it's been too bad to quite run back, even though it hasn't been quite as comically terrible these past couple weeks.
It's been too bad to run back as if you have a shot at one of those top guys, and that's the killer. Now it's no guarantee they do. Who knows? Maybe the Panthers start to get a couple wins, and I think it's interesting. The bar for Fields moves greatly depending on where they draft with their first pick. If it's at 5, all of a sudden, do you want to take a Ewers? Do you want to take a Penix?
No, there's no QB3
so it's all of a sudden it's maybe we just roll with Fields another year and add another weapon and
how much does it move back? Because if they're picking at 5 with but they have 2, right? Is there a world where they have 2 picks and one of them is outside of the top 10? I think if you had 2 picks at 5 and 9, you would be inclined to trade up.
Could you?
I just think they're going to have one of these first 2 picks. I mean, it would be. It's kind of tough to project, but the Panthers and the Bears, how are they getting to at least 2?
All we're asking is for both of them to get to at least 3. It's possible. It could happen.
Yeah.
Plus, then it wouldn't really be a huge trade up. You probably wouldn't even need.
What you're not considering is that, okay, unless I guess the Cardinals, but it's very possible. The idea of we'll just trade up doesn't really work like that. The teams
right,
want to trade up. You need teams to be up there who don't want a quarterback. That's not that common.
Denver could definitely take one. The Giants could definitely take one.
Well, that's the thing is this is kind of the year where maybe you could convince some of those teams, like Arizona, if Kyler is there, you could trade up, or Russ, he's still on a big contract, and Russ hasn't really been the biggest problem.
I think that.
Imagine calling that. It was bro, if it were me, I would pick Russ in a heartbeat.
I think Chicago has such a clear path to being a top 2 pick that it's not going to matter. I really don't see the Giants quite being bad enough for Green Bay or even New England or the Chargers. Denver's defense is pretty bad, but their offensive results have just been way clearer of Carolina. I don't know who's really going to contend for those bottom 2 spots outside of Carolina and Chicago.
All right. Okay. I mean, we can't even fathom a world where the Panthers aren't the worst team in the league.
No hypotheticals.
No. You're right, Theo.
It's pretty bad. The other thing they need to do, I think, is fire Eberflus. Again, coaches I think deserve more benefit of the doubt than fandoms tend to give them. But with Eberflus, I just am not sure what he does super well. You've got a guy like Raheem Morris who you could potentially hire, who has much better defensive ideas. He's been around the McVay tree or the Shanahan tree or whatever you want to say his entire time. He's been a crucial part of the development. He's been there the whole way with McDaniel and Shanahan and McVay and LaFleur. Like he knows those guys well. He's been a part of those buildings when they've worked like at every stop. And right now he took a defense with no ingredients and made a pretty passable unit. And everyone loves him. Jalen Ramsey like cannot stop talking about how much he like loves Raheem Morris. He seems to be like a better, more charismatic leader than Eberflus is, who couldn't motivate me to make a sandwich. Like he, like what does Eberflus do if he's not this crazy culture guy? If he's not this genius scheme guy? There seems to be kind of some toxicity in the building under his reign. I know that they've won a little bit here recently, which makes it a little better, but still, like I don't really see much justification for keeping this coaching staff.
You just have such a chance for a reset. Like you're in such a good position to do it. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you take that opportunity? I think I agree.
So I would. It doesn't have to be Raheem Morris, although I do think that he more than deserves a head coaching job.
Could be Ben Johnson. Could be.
Yeah, I
God, imagine how excited you'd be, at least on paper, of Drake May, a weapon, DJ Moore, Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
It ain't hard to talk somebody into.
As opposed to like Fields ends the year 26th in passing EPA and you bring back Eberflus. Like, no, that's stupid. Like that does not seem like the most like
you're not selling a lot of jerseys with that one.
No, you're not selling jerseys and you're just not getting anybody excited. Your Vegas odds would be at the bottom. Like there's just no reason for optimism again after all this. I think a full rebuild is in order, but they can feel good because they have the pieces to do it. So they're just as bad as any team in the league right now, though. I mean, their defense still has no pass rush. Yeah. So it's more than just the quarterback situation, but to get a more inspired quarterback play caller combination like that alone is the number one needle mover, and they have a chance to do that. So that should obviously be what they do.
Make Little Caesars the official pizza sponsor of the NFL part of your game day. Order online during our Pizza pregame 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day Sunday. And get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win. And speaking of winning, everyone scores with convenient delivery or our in-store pizza portal pickup. So grab some friends and enjoy a few slices during the game. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos. And Theo, you said their offense clears Carolina's not a very high bar.
No.
I'm looking right now. Their defense is the worst in the league, which is unsurprising given they gave up 70 to the Miami Dolphins, a historically awful performance. Even Patrick Surtain has not been fantastic this year. Where do you go?
Don't trade Surtain. That is
easy
my
trap
number
to fall
one.
into.
That is my number one thing. Do not do that.
Yeah.
All right.
I was talking to a Broncos fan the other day, and he said the only player on this team that he has any sort of desire to keep is Pat Surtain. He's like, everyone else. He's like, even Kareem. I could live without it.
Kareem has been suspended more than playing.
He's like, I could live without it.
He has more fines than
he's like
interceptions.
Javonte, I can live without. But like Pat Surtain, if we get rid of him, I'm done. I can't.
Well, Javonte and Jackson are not as good as
Simmons. Simmons too. Simmons is the other guy. Or you're just like, I can live without Simmons. I can live without Javonte. I can live without Kareem. But
yeah, you need to keep all the Surtain trade rumors. To me, are completely ridiculous. Like that is the only building block that you really feel comfortable with. Everyone else, I agree. Like everyone else can go, except for him.
Yeah. It's tough because they went and spent some serious cash this offseason, and none of those signings have been super, super amazing for them. I mean, they're sitting here with negative $20 million in cap space next offseason.
I just think they built it out wrong. Like, what were
They
those
did.
signings? It was Ben Powers, it was Mike McGlinchey, it was
Zach
Samaje
Allen.
Perine, and Zach Allen on the other
Zach
side.
Allen, they gave a huge contract.
They gave him a gigantic deal, and
he was all right last year, but
like these guys that they gave money to, like, work with a certain sort of scheme. Like, you can run behind these guys, like you can be a powerful rushing attack. It's just, how does that move the needle in terms of winning games at this point for them? Like, their defense had no corners outside of Surtain. Their pass rush was extremely weak with not really any kind of 1A or even a B. Maybe Benito, he seems more like a third down specialist though. So your defensive line didn't really have any difference makers, and there was only one corner. There's only so much bleeding that he can stop. And you're just like, we're going to keep the ball on the ground. We're going to be good at that. And these guys can do that. These linemen can do that, but they're actually negatives when we drop back and pass. That's the kind of scheme that will work if you have a great defense. And I think they just did the wrong thing. Like, Vance Joseph wasn't the right hire. And their players aren't the right players, you know? So to me,
wrong.
I don't even know what my point is at this point. Like, last offseason was really bad. Trading for Sean Payton, fine. I think everyone looked at that as the only thing that they did last offseason. But that contracts they handed out were, I think, at the time, bad contracts, and look like bad contracts now because they're one of the worst teams in the league. And like you said, Matt, just not a lot of cap space. So.
And the thing is, there's not much to do other than wait it out. I mean, you could go and start restructuring, but
2 disaster off seasons in a row is going to take a little while to fix.
Yeah.
I was so confused when Sean Payton said he would be disappointed if they missed the playoffs this year.
He was on a tear talking this whole.
He was in his like media personnel.
He was in his villain. Yeah.
He thought he was.
I don't know what he was thinking.
He thought he was still in the press box, but.
Yeah, I think that if they have a chance and they finish at the top of the league, they should draft a quarterback. I mean,
I agree.
You can hypothetically move off Wilson this year. Not that he's been that bad, but he hasn't been like notably good either.
He's still got a ton of guaranteed money.
He does. It's possible. It is like realistically crippling thing to do, but you can do it.
After this season,
find a team
he has $85 million in guaranteed money.
Could you find a team to Brock Osweiler?
You might be able to do that.
Money?
You could Brock Osweiler it, but Brock was $18 million, granted a little while ago, so it was more to the cap. For a second, for $85 million.
I mean, you might as well cut. If you draft number 2, I mean, why are you keeping Drake May on the bench? Why are you keeping Caleb Williams on the bench for Russell Wilson? Like, if it saves you any money in the long run, I'd probably let Wilson walk, even if he is playing decently. Although maybe he has played decently enough that some team would perhaps Brock Osweiler the contract or something like that.
You can't even cut him to save money until 25, and that would still leave you with $50 million of dead cap. In 26, it's 30. Dude, it's bad, man.
It is bad, but if I'm a GM, I'm not letting the money given out in the past affect the opportunity to draft a real franchise.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I'm just saying they're kind of in a Panthers situation where it's like, you got to wait it out. And I would be sellers at the deadline if I were them. I would really think about, are there some of these guys that we could move to save some money? Or that, instead of trying to restructure and build it out that way, because I just think they're way too far to be trying any of that. Like a Justin Simmons maybe, or I don't know who else. Any of these guys that they could.
Judy, I'd try to move off Judy. Like, if I could fleece some team into getting, his value's kind of in the tank right now. He's been acting kind of erratically. He's injured. I don't know how badly he got injured in the Packers game, actually. I saw no news on that game. If I hadn't been there, I would have never have even known that it happened. I didn't see a single update or anybody talk about it.
the real question is, were you actually there?
I don't know. I don't know. Did that game happen? I may have dreamed it.
Came to him in a dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
And again, Russ
know.
has not even been playing like that horribly bad. He just isn't a positive force in the way.
Which is tough because you gave him a bunch of money and traded a bunch of draft picks for him. So that's not good.
Yeah.
No, it's not good. And they're still 21st when they drop back in EPA, which is not the greatest mark to be at. So yeah, Russ can go. And I don't know exactly how they would approach that with his contract. I would probably, maybe he's been just good enough that you could find a trade partner and move him for like a late pick. But
I have no idea. I mean, you would literally just have to best offer. We'll do anything.
I just don't think it's like if you trade him and you take on that dead cap and all of a sudden you're $50 million more dollars in the hole. It's not like, well, at least you're off the money. You're going to have to do things to get yourself, as a salary legal team. And that those things are either going to be cutting a lot of guys, which I don't even know if they have enough guys to cut for that. Maybe trading, maybe just being mega sellers. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but it would be straight tanking if you tried to do that, or restructuring, which again, I think they're not in a position to do that. I think they're just going to wait it out another year.
Yeah, I also wonder if Sean Payton would be wanting to go through another rebuild.
Well, he's gotta. I mean, what is it? He has to What do you mean? You think he's gonna retire? They have to rebuild.
He's done it before.
Yeah, maybe he's not in it for the long run. That wouldn't shock me if Payton is just like, man,
he's like, that would be trade a first round pick for me, and then he's like, screw this, never mind, I'm out.
I mean, with Sean Payton, he's kind of cutthroat. He might do it. He totally retired from the Saints because he saw the cap situation coming up and being like, I'm not gonna be able to do anything with this. If they cut Russ early in 2024, they would get they would incur so much dead money, but there just would be a couple benefits that would, and that they're saving $30 million in cash.
You could always do like the post June 1st designation to split it up between 2 years. That is always possible. That makes it a little bit easier. And then it would only cost you for that season. It'd only be like a few $1 million more. I just think it's unlikely that they do that, though.
That's what I would do, I think, but who knows? What's the next team?
So let's stop talking about this disaster. The next team would be the New York Giants, who had so many high hopes coming into the season, God. Even from our esteemed co-host Theo Ash NFL, who tried to redeem himself from the previous.
They looked a little better.
Take.
They looked a little better these last 2 weeks.
Oh man, not saying much. They have started out completely flat. And the question is, who was it that made the tweet? Was it Watson's agent that was like, I'm so glad that Daniel Jones got paid. If you can fleece a billionaire, by all means.
Yeah, I think they're kind of like Russ, where if they draft high enough, even though Daniel Jones's contract is new, it shouldn't be enough for them to
It's very different because
it's not nearly as big as Russ's
they don't have
contract.
It's not as long. I mean, they could be like done with it after next year entirely.
Yeah, it's not as bad as Russ's contract, no doubt. It's still a misstep, though. They need a lot. They need, to me, perhaps a new offensive line coach, because all of their rookies are bad. Like, they bring in Evan Neal, and he's just like at his floor from the jump. They bring in the center from Minnesota, and he's just like at his floor from the jump. That's one where like maybe you could see going in a different direction on that room, because the mistakes are really like glaring and they happen all the time, and like footwork is bad. Like, coaching things are bad. Like, Evan Neal's footwork is terrible, and his sets are like, starting with his sets, he can get into his set. Like, I know that he can, and right now he just like can't. So the issues to me are glaring enough that like perhaps a coaching change could be made there, and hopefully the young pieces get a little bit better. There's so many holes on this team, and they've invested so many high picks in the line that it might be like kind of a Viking situation where you hope like Ed Ingram gets better, as bad as it was last year, or Ezra Cleveland gets better, as bad as it was, or Garrett Bradbury gets better, as bad as it was early in his career. And now they've kind of gone the continuity way, and eventually these guys who have sucked have gotten all right in Minnesota. I think that's probably what I would try to do if I was the Giants and address some different pieces. I would keep Saquon Barkley. I know that he's in some trade talks. I think that Saquon Barkley is really fantastic, and you just need a weapon to kind of complement him and be able to move the ball in the air and on the ground, because right now the whole in the air portion isn't there. So that's probably where I would.
I mean, you were hoping Darren Waller would really be that, and he's had some flashes.
He's just
for them, but
never 100%.
Yeah.
And it's just tough for an older tight end who's not necessarily the greatest blocker to be that second star. I think a quarterback should be on their radar. Again, I don't think any of the QB3s are good enough to be starters. That from what I have seen so far. Shador, if he even declares, no. Penix, if he has to come out, no. Maybe JJ McCarthy. I haven't really seen him yet. It sounds like he's not really a first round pick. Like, I don't think Ewers is a first round pick at all
this year.
I'll check out JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy is the only one that even intrigues me as like a first round
glaring
pick right
issue.
Now. What is the that he plays for Michigan?
That's bad.
It is really bad.
He's playing better because he has the signs.
That's true. He also is a cheater, and you just don't want that type of.
He's going to win the Heisman, and then it's going to get taken from him. They're going to announce the punishments for Michigan as he accepts the award, and then they're just going to like take it immediately, like it's a movie.
The FBI is going to run on stage, take his trophy.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Imagine if John Harbaugh wins the championship and he's about to get excited and like go up and talk to the athletic director of the school and talk about how much the win means, and then they say not so fast, and NCAA agents storm the stage, perform citizen. Yeah, they take him away, and then they say, Kyle McCord, step on up. And Kyle McCord steps up to the podium and says, in a shocking twist of fate, Michigan is not the champions. It's actually Ohio State. And then just when it looked like it was over, Ohio State wins the trophy. And what do you think the odds are of that happening?
Man.
I'd say good. I'd say good odds.
They beat Michigan twice in the same season. Doesn't get much better than that.
Or maybe it would be better if Ohio State beat them in the finals and then they get arrested anyway.
Yes. That would be preferable.
I'm pretty sure there's a movie that
and they say you guys aren't even going to be, you're getting your runner-up taken away. And history is going to show that this was actually an Ohio State versus Washington game, not you. So then they don't even get to be runners up. But I guess that would take a win off of Ryan Day's versus Michigan record.
He gets to keep the win against Michigan.
Much to consider.
These are the discussions the discipline committee are having right now.
Ohio State gets to choose. It's like an accept or decline the penalty. You get to choose whether or not Michigan gets to keep the fact that they played in this game.
Right. Yeah, it's like a 15-yard penalty. The refs come in. Even though Ryan Day has nothing to do with this and the seat was actually empty at the game, they still let Ohio State choose Michigan's fate in this whole investigation.
I agree.
How did we get here?
I think we were talking about if JJ McCarthy was a viable QB3 if the Giants missed out on the top two.
If you have no morals, yes, probably, maybe. But if you're a good Columbus citizen, you would never.
Okay. Anyway, They should not trade Saquon. I really like Saquon. I think the Packers should trade for Saquon if he is available. I think that Saquon is a top 3 running back in the league right now. I think it's McCaffrey, I think it's Bijan, and I think it's Saquon. And I think those
now
are
he
your
loves
top 3.
McCaffrey.
Well, it's been pretty tough to deny this year how good he's been.
The switch up is
you're not going to
crazy.
see me do it. It is crazy. I shouldn't have been so low on him. But Saquon behind that line has no shot to be efficient. His backup is averaging 2.7 yards per attempt. I think you can see it every time Saquon gets the ball. Like, he has to go to such incredible lengths to even get what he gets out of these runs. And if it wasn't for the offensive line, like, I really think he could be an engine. And that's just kind of the problem with running backs. But I think that there will be calls made at the deadline. If I'm not getting like a first for Saquon, I'm saying no, or like a bunch of seconds or thirds or something like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't get rid of Saquon either.
I think about second pretty easily.
You would trade him away for a second,
dude. How old is he, man?
He's not that old.
He's getting up there in running back years.
How old is he? He's 26.
28 is typically
he's got
the
2 more
time for
years
running
before
backs.
he's no longer good at football.
Well,
I would give him. I think he's good for at least 3 more years. I think that I would hold on to Saquon even for a second round pick. For a first, I'd think about it, and I think for some teams, Saquon, like a late first, McCaffrey has been worth the trade, has he not? Like, we all sat here and said, like, a running back for that much, not worth it. The second and third, like 2/4 or whatever it was. I think McCaffrey has been worth that for the 49ers. And it just comes down to, I think when it comes to running back value, there is a certain type of running back that's a bit of a dinosaur. But if you can threaten linebackers and demand safety attention in coverage and make them rotate down, you get those single high looks that open up the deep ball more than you see across the league right now when everyone's got too high. Like, a receiving back can kind of break that structure. And I think that Saquon isn't a McCaffrey level receiver, but he can run some routes and catch out of the backfield. Like, Saquon in an option route is a dangerous thing. So because he has that ability combined with his ability and size to hold up as a bell cow back, like between the tackles, I do think he's a pretty valuable player. So,
what teams do you think would be interested in a McCaffrey trade? There's like the bad rushing teams. The bad rushing teams in the league would be what? Tampa? Would Minnesota be interested?
I think a team like Green Bay, I really think that the Packers being in on Jonathan Taylor means that this isn't the craziest thing in the world. You look at Aaron Jones and you think about how much time he has left in the league. Like, he's injured all the time. He's getting to the end of the contract. He's getting pretty old. They can't play him too much. Like, is he preventing you from adding a guy like Saquon or AJ Dillon, who doesn't have much explosiveness to him? Like, there's a reason they were pursuing Jonathan Taylor. And if they had an engine like that behind Love, that could give them an easier button to press. Because right now the line is mid and the receivers aren't living up to anything.
Maybe
but
the Ravens.
It's kind of a soft rebuild in Green Bay. So to add a good piece right now, I don't think that they're gunning for the number 1 overall pick or anything like that. And then, yeah, maybe the Ravens.
Matt, you might be cooking with that one.
That would be super fun.
We know they value running backs because they took Dobbins high, but he's probably about done. Their running back room's pretty weak. They're in super contention mode right now. I'd call if I were the Ravens.
That would be a nice buy-in move. The Eagles just made a buy-in move for Byard. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Not unthinkable.
Yeah, you're going to have a late first, so I could see something like that potentially going down. I know they said they wouldn't trade Saquon, but people say things all the time. So I think that this isn't really getting into the beat. I would like to have him around, so it's like not even. Yeah, but I do think that you could get some. I think he's a valuable player. I think that he's a valuable player, I guess, is what it comes down to. I think they need to switch up maybe the leadership in that offensive line room. I think in terms of their draft, if they're drafting high enough for it, like Daniel Jones to me is not the answer. If you're not high enough for it, I think you need to add a weapon like Coleman or Marvin Harrison to go alongside Saquon, and then you kind of have that balanced punch where it's not just running that is effective for you, but there's someone down the field as well, and that can really open up everything. And Saquon can actually have some efficient seasons to show for his talent. So the defense, you've got Dexter, you've got Okereke, you've got Kayvon, you've got Banks, you've got a lot of young secondary pieces. I think that, for better or worse, kind of has to grow. And I think that you really need to find one of those studs in the passing game for them, which is true for a lot of these teams.
Yep. That's true for so many of these teams, man. You have to have them. You have to have the studs at wide receivers or at tight end or
a quarterback.
Yeah, you just can't. Passing offense comes first to some extent.
Yep.
Yeah. On both sides.
One of these teams is probably going to be the T. Higgins team too.
Yeah, I could definitely see that being the case. If the writing's on the wall after a down season, he's probably going to demand more money than the stats can really back up the Bengals paying him. It's a real shot that he's somewhere else next year.
Man. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. I didn't even think about T. But that leaves us with, I think, only one other team that we want to hit today, which is the New England Patriots, the unofficial rival of the New York Giants. But maybe not so much anymore. Everyone in that kind of era is kind of gone at this point.
Well, they just both suck so much. I think they still hate each other a decent amount.
Probably. I mean, they're in the same kind of geographic vein.
I think when it comes to the Patriots, they just kind of need Belichick to give up any kind of offensive control. Like, defensive wise, they're just kind of injured. Like, Gonzalez looked so great, and then he was banged up, and then they had no corners. I think the defense is like going mostly fine for the most part. Like, it
all
could
things
be better,
considered.
but it pales in comparison to their problems on offense. Is probably what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and Belichick has shown nothing in terms of ability to make the right decisions as a GM in that area post Tom Brady. Like, just has not been able to do it. And Belichick as a GM, going to end up being underrated all time. Belichick has been the GM since 2000. All right. Everything that the Patriots have done over the course of their dynasty, like, Belichick handpicked or maybe not handpicked, but he was in charge of the team in all aspects for a long time. It's just post Brady hasn't quite been able to figure it out in terms of like strange offensive coordinator moves, strange draft picks. Like, maybe it's time for him to step down and outsource his weakness, which is building an offensive football team. And that to me is like the number one thing.
Or maybe, or at least a modern offensive football team, because the offense was like, he drafted Brady. He found success there. You know, he found success with the receivers that he found in those early years also, with Welker and then Edelman. But it's just like, that just doesn't work anymore. And I feel like he's trying to kind of live off the stuff that he found success with early on, and it's just not there. Defensively, a lot, he can still win, but yeah, the offensive stuff is just probably too ancient.
And I think it comes down to talent. I like Bill O'Brien. It should have worked, like he's been a good offensive play caller before. You're at Bama, you're trying to incorporate these things. And I just think, like, moving on from not Bourne, who is in not Oakland, Las Vegas now, the wide receiver, Myers.
Jacoby.
Basically, like, letting him go and getting Juju for the exact same contract is just like a downgrade for no reason. Like, taking Tyquan, I like Tyquan Thornton a decent amount, but to take him as high as they did, just very, very questionable.
That's how it's been with all their offensive moves, man.
It's like a little bit too, like
Cole
what?
Strange in the first. It's like, man,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, talk
Like,
about
what are
strange
we?
offensive draft picks,
What are we doing? Like drafting? There's just not really a place for like Mike Gesicki in the league right now, and it's like you're bringing him in to be the explosive play guy. I don't know. I don't know. Will to me fixing them. Maybe it's a new coach. Like, just get rid of Belichick entirely because he just doesn't have it as a GM anymore. Like that could be true, but it sounds like he kind of signed a mysterious extension. Like, I just don't think that's a viable thing. I don't know. I don't know what they do. I think they're kind of obviously they have to make investments in the explosive passing attack, like all of these teams, except for maybe the Cardinals. That's why I'm like, maybe the Cardinals won't add something like that because everyone else will just be more desperate to do it than them.
But if
The
they got
Patriots
first dibs, I still think they should.
yeah.
Because at some point you're going to want to. So you got the opportunity to do it. You should do it.
Yeah, and you get the
It's
guy
like,
you
it's
want.
like taking a
You don't have
quarterback
to.
high too. Honestly, if you got the opportunity to, do it. Unless you
And that's
absolutely can't take it on.
That's the other thing with the Patriots. It's like we can give Belichick props for taking Gonzalez, but he was like willing to let him slip through his fingers.
Yeah, that was a little bit strange that they didn't just take him and they drafted him after trading back. The other thing that's kind of strange about the Patriots is like all their defensive players are like good. It's tough to say like, oh, they need an edge because their edges are good and their defensive tackles are fine. And Bentley's a good linebacker and their safety room isn't bad either. But it's like they could probably use an undeniable. I wish they were maybe a little bit better going backwards as they are going forwards. Like, I think they're a really physical team. They can take the air out of everything when it comes to, run defense. But when it comes to covering and like, if you're asking these guys to like move backwards, then I think the talent starts to get exposed a little bit because they are so physical and they are coached so well. But when it comes time to like spread out, so maybe but it's like I don't even know how to necessarily upgrade because like everyone's good. It's not just some like
My prediction,
guarantee. Yeah.
I got two. They're going to add explosive players. They actually have a lot of money this offseason. So if you're Bill Belichick and you know you're bad at drafting these explosive players and you got big money, I think they're going to be the ones to go after Higgins. I think this is where he ends up because it'll be like, well, we know what he can do. And he likes those big body receivers. He does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Higgins fits that. He makes things easier. It's like, you're getting a guy. Maybe you have to give him some capital. Maybe you got to have to give him a big contract, but they've tried to do that before and it hasn't worked. So they're obviously willing to. So I think that's what happens. Or, is there a more Brock Bowers team than New England?
True.
So, or they could hypothetically do both, which would be interesting. So
they could hypothetically do both, and then you kind of just trust Belichick to make the second and third round picks at
defense.
Defense just to like make it okay, and then just bring in that kind of firepower for offense. Yeah, that could work.
Yeah, I mean, the struggle with them on defense right now, and why it's so hard to project for them is like Marcus Jones IR, Christian Gonzalez IR, Raekwon McMillan IR, Matthew Judon IR. It's like,
yeah, they're very injured. They're very banged
like,
up. The Gonzalez injury was
that?
just so
right, because like that is their star. You're like, oh, they need a star. That's the guy, right? And he locked up Tyreek Hill, but now he's hurt.
I could also see just taking a baller ass tackle. Like their right tackle position right now is Riley Reif, who is so old.
Yeah.
I could see that being like a Joe Alt, the Penn State guy whose name slips my mind. I could definitely see those guys being very worthy additions as well. Because if we're saying like everyone needs Keon Coleman, everyone needs Brock Bowers, everyone needs, obviously those things are true, but not everybody can end up with those guys. So yeah, right tackle. Luckily, it's also a very strong tackle class, and that's a pretty glaring need for New England as well. Is offensive linemen, especially at that right tackle spot. So.
I mean, Riley Reif and Wheatley Jr. are both on IR also. This team is just getting slaughtered. I mean, how many guys do they have like healthy at this point.
And they should also take the top 2 quarterbacks if they get the opportunity, pretty obviously.
Both of them?
Well, either of them. Mac Jones isn't doing what Caleb Williams or Drake May can do. So if you get that number 1 or number 2 overall pick, it's pretty obvious for every team but the Cardinals what you should do.
I say roll with Bailey Zappi, actually. No, yeah.
Stop yanking Matt Corral around.
Either Matt Corral or Bailey Zappi.
Some of these teams are going to take looks at these guys outside of the top 2. Those guys are going to get drafted. Maybe they're not. There isn't a solid quarterback 3, but there's a lot of guys who should go in the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Belichick will be drafting J.J. McCarthy.
Could happen.
Last time he drafted a quarterback from Michigan, it went pretty well.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Unless they drafted one in between then that I can't think of. But let's do the locks.
Let's do the locks. Stay Hot locks. Theo, who are the Stay Hot locks brought to you by?
They're brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. And last week, well, let's explain how they work real quick. It's basically a parlay. We draft. It's like a draft and a parlay. We snake. We each take a team we think is going to win. All of the teams that we pick need to win for us to get points. Last week, I was a coward and just picked one team, the Chiefs over the Chargers. They won. Matt picked, who did you take? The Bills over the Patriots. That was ruined by Demario Douglas going hog wild on the old ass Bills secondary.
I should have known that Demario Douglas was going to go hog wild.
You should have. Yes, it was the Demario Douglas.
You told me. You tried to stop me.
I was on my pod. Yeah, you weren't listening. It was on a live stream comment that I typed and didn't say. I said Demario. You wouldn't have seen it, but
you said he's going hog wild. You fool.
Yes, he's. No one's going to be able to make him.
Yeah, Theo was the only viewer on this live stream.
Yes, I was the only one in there, but I did say it, and you have to believe me. But yeah, so Matt lost. He was in the lead by a point. Blaiden picked the 49ers, so he also lost.
Bears.
Yeah, and the Bears.
The Raiders.
The Raiders. So you should get -2 if you miss on everything, maybe next year. But with that being said, that's how we did last week. Yeah. Those are the rules. I am tied for first with Matt. We both have 5 points. And then Blaiden
won last week, so you should get to pick where you choose.
Yes. So
4 points.
It's my honor. I'm going to pick where I pick, and I'm going to go first because that probably has the juiciest game. I am going to lock the Chiefs over the Broncos. How about that? The Broncos never beat the Chiefs, and I don't know why they would now.
Yeah. Matt.
Is that making my pick?
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess you could take the swing if you wanted, but.
Nah, I'll just pick here, make it easier. I'm going to take the Ravens over the Cardinals. They're a little bit risky. They dropped that one to the Colts, but I think that's probably one of the bigger spreads of the week, and that's usually how I play it, so I'll go with them.
Yeah, it's usually a pretty good call to take large spreads.
Okay.
I will take, with my first pick, because I have the swing here, I will take the Dolphins over the Patriots, which might be a little bit risky.
Patriots made it close last time.
I know, but they don't have Gonzalez this time.
Yeah, that's true.
Who's going to guard Tyreek?
That was a big part of that. Jack Jones, baby.
Sean Wade, let's go.
Do not mention Sean Wade in the same breath as Jack Jones ever again.
Buckeye legend.
I don't know if I'd call him a legend, man.
Legend.
And then with my next pick, I will go with the Lions over the Raiders. I know the Lions aren't necessarily perfect, but they're still pretty dang good. I think they'll beat the Raiders. So then, Matt, back to you.
I'll go with Philly over Washington. They're one of the best teams.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest spreads left. I want to go with 2 this week, trying to get some stuff going. There's another team that I considered going with, but I won't do it.
I'll do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll take the Texans over the Panthers.
Yeah.
Maybe Bryce Young beats CJ Stroud
We're
and
gonna prove
makes
you wrong.
Maybe it's a chip on his shoulder game after everybody's been talking about how great Stroud was and how it was the wrong pick to take him at 1. And maybe he comes out and it's a really inspired performance off the bye. But I'm thinking more likely the things that have been true about the Panthers remain true about the Panthers, and the things that have been true about the Texans remain true about the Texans, and the Texans are substantially better and they win the game.
Matt, I assume you would rather the Panthers win, but would it make your heart warm just a little bit to see Stroud
no
win this?
That would be the worst. That's like the worst outcome.
Make my heart cold.
And then I've got another pick.
Yeah,
I'll take the Vikings over the Packers, and if somehow the Packers win, it'll be a little emotional hedging. I think the Vikings looked really good last week against them.
Their offense is getting there, man.
It's the line did a great job. I know they won't have Jefferson, but Addison is super legit. Hawkinson is good. They still have guys to throw to. Powell had a weirdly extremely good game. And then you look at the Packers offense going up against Brian Flores' defense. I just think there's going to be mistakes. The Vikings really moved me, and the Packers I still think are not a total bottom feeder, but they're certainly mid to bad. So I'll go with the Vikings, and if the Packers pull it out, then I can sleep fine at night, because obviously I'd rather that happen.
Yeah, either you're right or you're happy. Can't lose. Right.
I'll be done.
I will also be done.
I will be done as you know what? I'll take the Jaguars. No, I won't take the Jaguars over the Steelers. The Jaguars have been a little bit too, and the Steelers have sold their soul to the devil. So that's just vibe-based scouting. Yeah, I'll be done. Those are 3.
All right. Those are the Stay Hot locks. Matt has the Ravens and the Eagles. Theo has the Chiefs, Texans, and Vikings. Both of them have 5 so far. And then I, with 4 points, have the Dolphins and the Lions. So for anyone that says I'm a Dolphins hater or a Lions hater this week, you can't, because I locked them to win. So, but that's pretty much all we have for today. We'll be back, of course, to recap some of the matchups from week 8 come Monday morning. But until then, thank you all so much for tuning in. And until next time, we will catch you on the Flippity Flop.